She came to return the wedding money after the man she was supposed to marry died. But when she arrived at his family's ranch, the cowboy asked her one question that stopped her in her tracks. Her answer would change the fate of the ranch and perhaps her own heart forever. What was the question? And why did she choose to stay when she had every reason to leave? Stay with us until the end to discover this touching Old West story filled with love, loyalty, and an unexpected second chance. If you enjoy emotional Western stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get started. The winter of 1884 had covered the small frontier town of Red Hollow in a blanket of pale snow. The wind howled across the open plains, rattling wooden signs and pushing clouds of dust and ice against the windows of the few buildings that lined the muddy main street. Just before sunset, a lone rider appeared on the road leading toward the Hart Ranch. Her name was Clara Whitmore. She was 24 years old, dressed in a dark wool coat, with a faded blue scarf wrapped around her neck. A small leather purse hung tightly from her gloved hand. Inside that purse were $500, money that had once been meant for her wedding. 3 months earlier, Clara had been promised to Samuel Hart, one of the most respected ranchers in the county. Their wedding had been planned for the autumn, but fate had taken Samuel before that day ever arrived. A sudden fever had claimed his life, leaving his ranch, his family, and Clara behind. Samuel's family had sent Clara $500 to cover wedding expenses, but Clara had never spent a single cent. Now she had returned to give it all back. When she reached Hart Ranch, she saw a tall man repairing a broken fence beside the barn. His coat was covered with snow, and his sleeves were rolled to his elbows, despite the bitter cold. It was Thomas Hart, Samuel's younger brother. Thomas noticed her horse and immediately stopped working. "Miss Whitmore?" Clara climbed down slowly. "Mr. Hart." Thomas looked surprised. "What brings you here in weather like this?" Clara held out the leather purse. "I came to return this." Thomas stared at it. "What is it?" "The wedding money your family sent me." For several seconds, neither spoke. Thomas finally shook his head. "You don't have to return it." "Yes, I do." "Why?" "Because the wedding never happened." Thomas stepped closer but refused to take the purse. "Samuel gave that money to you. He gave it for a purpose that no longer exists." Thomas studied her tired face. There was something in her eyes that told him she had not come merely to settle an old account. Instead of taking the purse, he asked quietly, "Miss Whitmore, if that money had never been sent to you, would you still have come to Hart Ranch?" Clara froze. The wind swept across the yard. She looked toward Dye, the old ranch house where Samuel had once dreamed of building a future. Then she whispered, "Yes." Thomas's expression changed. "Why?" Clara swallowed hard. "Because I made Samuel a promise before he died." Thomas waited. Clara looked directly into his eyes. "I promised him I would never let this ranch be abandoned." For the first time, Thomas understood that Clara had not returned to give something away. She had come to stay. Thomas Hart stood silently in the snowy yard, staring at Clara as though he had never truly seen her before. "You mean to stay?" he asked. Clara nodded. "If you will allow me." Thomas looked toward the ranch house. The roof needed repair. The barn doors hung crooked, and several sections of fencing had fallen into the snow. "This place is nearly broke," he said. "Samuel left debts behind. The cattle are fewer than they should be, and the bank wants payment by spring." Clara tightened her grip around the leather purse. "Then we shall work." Thomas frowned. "You don't have to carry my brother's troubles." "I am not carrying his troubles," she replied. "I am keeping my promise." The next morning, Clara began working beside Thomas. She cooked for the ranch hands, mended clothes, kept the accounts, and learned how to judge cattle. Thomas repaired fences, rode the distant fields, and negotiated with merchants in Red Hollow. Weeks passed, then months. Slowly, the ranch began to change. Clara discovered that several cattle buyers had been cheating Samuel before his death. She found old records showing that the ranch could still make a profit if the cattle were sold directly instead of through dishonest middlemen. Thomas trusted her judgment. By spring, the Hart Ranch had begun earning money again. One afternoon, Thomas returned from town carrying a letter. The bank has agreed to extend the loan, he said. Clara smiled with relief. And the cattle? Sold half the herd at a fair price? Clara laughed softly. For the first time since Samuel's death, the ranch felt alive again. But something between Clara and Thomas had changed. They had started as strangers connected only by grief. Now they had become partners who understood each other's silence, fears, and hopes. One warm evening, they stood beneath an old cottonwood tree overlooking the ranch. Thomas reached into his coat and pulled out the same leather purse Clara had tried to return months before. "You remember this?" he asked. Clara smiled. "Of course. I kept wondering why you came here that night." "You asked me one question." Thomas nodded. "If the money had never been given to you, would you still have come?" "Yes." "Would you come again?" Clara looked at him. "For the ranch?" Thomas smiled. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I think," she whispered, "I already did." Thomas gently took her hand. The $500 had brought Clara to Hart Ranch. But it was courage, loyalty, and love that finally made it home. And under the golden western sky, Clara realized that sometimes one question could change an entire life.